crying to me, as I said before, like when I was at my own granny's funeral when I was a young kid. I remember standing there looking at her. We were awakening the body up in the bedroom, and everybody was crying uncontrollably, like. And I was standing there, and I remember looking around at people and going, "What the hell is wrong with me? Like, you know, why can't I? Like, I don't feel anything here."
That's Jody Kennedy, and this, my friends, is the Yoga Life podcast. What's up, Yoga Lifers? Yeah, can I say that now, or can I give this tribe of people that listen to this podcast a name, an official name? I think the Yoga Lifers sounds pretty good, so we'll go with that. We'll test it out anyway. Hope you're keeping well. Hope you had a good week. In Ireland now, it's pretty cold, so I hope you're keeping warm and not getting fluey. If you listen in Australia, I hope you're not getting sunburnt. You know, just basically look after yourself no matter what the weather elements are. This week I have with me Jody Kennedy. It's hard to explain Jody, or describe Jody, should I say, because he's a man of many talents. He is passionate about ancestral health and fitness, but how I know him is through going on his Re-Wilding Man retreat. If you follow me on Instagram, you would have seen that about 5 months ago, I went to meet a bunch of men on a hillside, crack of dawn, to carry rocks, to run up hills, to wrestle, to be submerged in cold water, to beat our chests, to chant and get rewilded. So Jody was the guy who organised that. That's his idea. And since then, last month, just before Christmas, we did a winter solstice where I brought my girlfriend. It was a mixed group, men and women, and had the shock of my life when we jumped into the Irish Sea in December. And that's an event I won't forget. But Jody's real interesting. He was in the military before. He's went to Peru, had an amazing ayahuasca experience, and I think I love his story. He's got a great voice as well. I said to him, "Jody, man, you got to start a podcast with that voice." He's got a real gravitas in his voice, and he's also got a very authentic Dublin accent. So if you want to know what a Dubliner sounds like, Jody's your man. So without further ado, here's Jody. What's up, Jody?
What's happening, brother? How are you?
I'm good, mate. How are you?
Very good, very good.
Welcome to the pod. What do you think?
It's fabulous. It's a wonderful setup. This thing in my face is quite intimidating.
That's the microphone you're referring to.
I hope so.
So we were just talking about, before we hit record, authenticity, and yes. I think like that is why podcasting is becoming so popular, because people want to hear an authentic message. What would you know? I was chatting to my girlfriend yesterday. I said, "Oh, Jody Kennedy," because she met you on our latest excursion. Mm-hmm. I said, "Jody's coming on the podcast on Monday." She goes, "What does he do for a living?" I said, "He is a." So I said, "You're a personal trainer. Is that fair?"
Yeah. So I do. Yeah, I've got multiple facets going on. Yeah, this is always like. So I do. Yeah, I do train people one-on-one. I obviously deal with a man. Focus stuff that we've done, so day retreats and hopefully moving into longer, more immersive stuff, and I do a lot of corporate work on the other side of that, so corporate seminars and all of that type of thing, talks and seminars and training as well, you know, going into big corporates and doing that type of stuff. So I can't talk about that stuff as much because it's all non-disclosure. You're not allowed to really talk about it too much, so that's something I don't like get to put out there that much. But yeah, I do quite a lot of that stuff actually. So,
but I think it's interesting you say multifaceted or multidisciplined, because I think that is the way the world is going now. There isn't just one job you do. I think it's important to have many skills and be able to diversify. Like the days of having one job for life is over.
Yeah.
And I think if you can't, especially in your line of work, if you can't, if you don't learn how to market yourself, how to do other things, then you're really limiting yourself. But the reason why I wanted to chat to you is I listened to your podcast with a Lost Man Standing, and I really do feel like men's mental health is men's health in general is sometimes overlooked, especially in the world of yoga. A lot of people listen to this are yoga teachers or yoga practitioners, and give them an idea. Okay, so I went on your Re-Wilding of Man before Christmas, and I have to say it was one of the most demanding things I've ever done. It really was. It was, but I wouldn't shut up about it for about a month afterwards. Every person I met, I was just like bending their ear about it. What is it for the someone who hasn't done it?
So the Re-Wilding of Man, I suppose, like how that came about is when originally I got into fitness and was training, and like the further you get into something, the more you realize how big it is, if that makes sense. So like if you're on the right path, as you progress in something, it should start to get bigger rather than get smaller. So you should start to see how you're never going to achieve mastery of something. And with fitness, it was kind of, as I got into it, I started to realize that like if I want people to stick to a program or stick to a diet or whatever the long-term goal may be, the real focus is on like mental discipline and on even like the spiritual aspect of being able to stick to something, you know what I mean, of having the resolve to see something through. And I start to see that you can't separate mental, physical, and the spiritual side. They are all the one thing, you know. So if you wanna stick to a program, or if you want to become functional and fit, like you've got to look at all aspects of it, or it's not something that you're going to maintain into the long term. So that was initially kind of how I started to think a little bit differently, and that came from, I suppose, martial arts originally, when I was younger, and then looking at fitness through that lens as well. And the Re-Wilding of Man thing was like after I went off to Peru, and I'm sure we'll talk about that a little bit, and had a little bit of an awakening, I suppose, about myself and about my inability to do certain things as a man, and how society and how we are just conditioned to stuff emotion down, and on the one side, and then on the other side, in modern society, it's very uncool in a lot of ways to be masculine, you know. And I have both sides of that because I grew up in a single mother household, you know. My mother brought the two of us up, two boys, two little lunatics, and so I have that like softer side, you know. I've spent a lot of time around females, and obviously my mother was a big figure growing up, you know. But at the same time, I always sought that masculine side of things, and I think that was why, like, I went into martial arts, and that was why I went to the army. Was I was looking for these masculine role models, maybe to a certain extent, and like, yeah, I was searching for something that I could imitate to a certain degree, you know. And I didn't necessarily find it in those places, you know. Without sounding too foo-foo, where I found that was in myself when I went away, and I actually took a deep look inside of myself and realized that, you know, masculinity is part of what we are. You can't remove masculinity from men, just like you can't remove femininity from women. And I don't see a lot of outlets for that now. And I think this maybe is a big part of why we have so much trouble with mental health with men, you know, and coupled with the fact that there's a certain point of view of like, you know, suck it up, and get on with it. It's very hard for men to talk about this stuff and kind of open up even to their closest friends. Mm-hmm. So the Rewilding of Man was like a amalgamation of a lot of different angles, and like the man side of it is just, that's where I feel semi-qualified to like with women. I don't feel like, I haven't gone through that experience as a woman, so I don't feel like I can talk as confidently or you know, as clearly about that. But from the male side of things, like I've been that guy who was unable to, you know, cry at my own granny's funeral and wondering what was wrong with me. I've been the guy who's, you know, had trouble supporting friends when they were going through emotional times. And I've come through that, and kind of, I would hope that I have evolved in that regard. So I feel that I can maybe help guys to see that side of things a little bit more, and that, you know, expressing emotion doesn't necessarily make you weak. It makes you stronger in the long run, you know. And it's one of the hardest things to face down, is your own shit, essentially, you know. So, yeah, I hope that answers your question. Does it?
And absolutely, because my experience of that event was carrying the sandbags, running, wrestling, the cold water immersion. It was stuff that, so the physical stuff just made me feel good, because I like that physical exertion. I'm not the most masculine guy, like archetypal masculine guy, but my dad is a carpenter. I mean, he built this loft, he did everything in this loft. And when I was younger, how I bonded with my dad, because we couldn't be more different. So how I bonded with him, I used to help on the building site. And his dad was a farmer. Farmer's farmer. So they're all physical, lifting, carrying stuff. So when I was younger and I'd help my dad on the building site, if I got a splinter in my finger or a callus, I'd be like really proud of it. Yes, you know, I'm like my dad.
Yeah.
You know, and that. So when I'm lifting things and doing things that I don't get a chance to do in everyday life, it gives me that connection to, I don't know what, but it makes me feel like I'm. Oh man, this sounds like almost like as good as my dad or something like that. Because and also, so you have the physical side in your Re-Wilding Man. You also have the bonding side, like we were slapping each other on the back and doing chanting and breathing. And because it was in that setting, if it was in a yoga class, I think a lot of guys would be uncomfortable with it. Because it was in that setting, it was way more comfortable doing it. And then you have the emotional side, like way a lot of when I went there, I think it was Mark. He was like, "What's up, brother?" And I was like, "Oh, hello, brother." You know, everyone would call each other brother, and I was like, "This is pretty cool." You know, I actually like that. I'm just not used to it. Because I was saying to my girlfriend, mate, it was like 2 days ago, I was saying how I have aggression inside me that I need to get it out. And that made me sound like a complete psycho, but I think a lot of men or people do. And I need that outlet. That's why I used to love jiu-jitsu. And when I do let that aggression out, or maybe aggression is the wrong word.
No.
Or energy.
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
No. But it's a dirty word now. I don't think we need to be ashamed of it. Like, aggression is something everybody has to deal with, you know?
I think because I associate the word aggression with violence. And they're not the same. But I think, do you think that's quite a common association people would make?
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's like aggression, dominance, you know, those things are things that we think of as negative things. But if there's a burglar coming through the door, aggression is a great emotion to have at that point. Or if you've got to push through something that is hard to push through, you know?
Well, I mean, even the progress of humanity, it requires, when you're doing a task that you don't want to do, whether it be redesigning your website or inventing the wheel, a bit of aggression helps you to keep going when you don't want to. What? So going back to you referenced Peru. Before you went to Peru, you were in the Irish Army. Is that right?
Yeah.
Or is it the British Army?
No, it's the Irish Army.
Okay,
Yeah.
sorry.
How dare you?
So talk to me about how you got into that.
Well, ever since I was a young boy, I was obsessed with weapons, and I was obsessed with military things, soldiering tactics, all of that stuff as a kid. Like when I think it was a couple of years ago, my mum said to me, I think it was at Christmas time, we were sitting down chatting, you know, and we were talking about old stuff, and she said, me and your father, we were really happy when you got into the army, when you joined the army, because we knew that you were going to get your hands on guns one way or another. And I said, I was like, oh, I'll take that as a compliment. But I think, you know, what she meant was that I had a certain amount of aggression, and I had, I needed an outlet for that side of myself, you know. And while other people were filling in the CEO forms and going to college, I knew exactly what I wanted to do. And I had no interest in going to college at that stage. And I went straight into the army. And, you know, the army served as a good rite of passage for me as a young man, because I was probably a little bit wild. And I probably was a little bit disrespectful of authority, and I didn't like being told what to do, and the army kind of taught me to just shut up and do what I was told, which was not a bad thing, you know. And it served as a rite of passage in regards to, like, it gave me a real self-confidence in my own ability to push through and stick things out when the going's bad, you know. Mm-hmm. And I think I did go in as a boy and I came out as a man. Like, that's really the way I felt. I think that's missing for a lot of people now, for like men especially, like this rite of passage or some kind of test, because you learn a lot about yourself when you go through these things, you know, and it gives you confidence. Like, even on our day, you said it was one of the most physically demanding things you've done. Yeah, well, you probably learned something about yourself, you know, is that when you're in moments of high stress and you don't know if you can, you know, you're questioning yourself, and that self-doubt starts to creep in. And it's a real skill, it's a muscle to learn how to control that, you know, and keep driving on.
Definitely.
And when you do it, it gives you a real sense of accomplishment afterwards, you know.
Mate, I was elated. I mean, I said to my girlfriend, I was like, it's funny how when me and her go for a run, I get tired after about 15, 20 minutes. I'm not used to running that much anymore. But it's amazing how your mind can be so powerful when it needs to be. And just that alone is enough of a takeaway from an event like that. So how long were you in the army for?
I was 12 years in there.
Wow.
Yeah, probably a little bit too long, to be honest. Because as a young man, like the first 5 years, I really enjoyed. Very physical, especially the first like year or two when you're going through that boot camp phase, and it's just like really physically demanding, and I really enjoyed that. Actually, that was my favorite part. But after you come out of that phase, then you go to barrack life, and barrack life is a little bit boring, to be honest with you. So like there's no soldering going on. You're essentially just, they're trying to find jobs for you to do, and you end up going on courses and applying for courses just to get out of that like barrack life, you know. So it tends to get a little bit monotonous after that, you know. So I after 5 years, I probably should have left, but I went to college, and when they pay for your college, they pay you while you're in college, I should say. So you owe them time then back. So I did 4 years, and I owed them 4 years back.
Okay.
And that's the way it goes. When you owe the army, there's no getting out, you know.
And then you went to Peru after that.
I went to Peru just before I left the army. So it was like I was due to leave in, I think it was May, and I went to Peru in February.
Why Peru?
Well, Peru is the home of ayahuasca, which is the whole reason that I went.
I didn't want to assume. And you were in Peru for 3 years. Oh, so
no.
how
I was in Peru for a month. I wasn't in Peru for 3 years. No.
Okay, you're in Peru for a
So
month.
I went to Peru to a center for 5 weeks to a guy called Don Howard Lawler, who was an ayahuasquero. He's originally trained as a Native American shaman down in New Mexico somewhere, I think, and worked his way through South America, and sampled the medicines. You know, he's like a peyote shaman. He's an ayahuasquero. He's a Wachuma shaman, which is the San Pedro cactus. And he runs an amazing center down in Iquitos in Peru. It's right in the Amazon basin. And I'd say thousands of people have probably been through this center. And I heard about that through a couple of different people. And I wanted to go to a place that was respected, and because there's a lot of messing going on now with this ayahuasca kind of tourism. So you just need to be very careful about where you go. So I did a lot of research and picked the right place. And I headed down there for 5 weeks.
Tell us about it then. What was ayahuasca like?
Yeah, it's a very interesting process.
How does it actually work? Like, what do you drink tea, or how does it go?
Yeah, so you make the brew. It's made from two essentially main parts. One is a vine which contains an MAO inhibitor. So you have monoamine oxidase, which is an enzyme in your stomach that breaks down the active component, which is DMT, dimethyltryptamine, which is what gives you the psychedelic experience. But we have a natural inhibitor in our stomach that kills this. So grass, leaves, thousands of plants are loaded with DMT, but we can't access it because our stomach acid breaks it down. Yeah. So the actual vine is the MAO inhibitor. So it's the thing that stops our stomach acid breaking DMT down. So you mix these two in a brew and they boil it up for 24 to 48 hours, and then you drink it, and it tastes like ass. It's horrible. Like, it's really, really bad. Like, when you drink a sizable cup of it as well, force it down. But it's all very ritualized and ceremonial, which I think is a big part of why it's so effective, you know, in helping people. But the experience itself is varying depending on the person. So for me personally, the experience was quite introverted. A lot of people have very, very visual experiences, and they go on wild journeys through different dimensions, and all kind of things happen. But for me, it was very introverted process. It was more somatic. It was more feeling and mind than actual visual, if that makes sense. It's hard to explain.
It was more mind than...
Well, it was more like a feeling than
yeah.
a visual process, you know. And there was a lot of visuals, like there was a lot of visual aspects to it, but it takes maybe an hour to an hour and a half for the medicine to start working, and then you start purging, which is a fancy word for puking and crapping.
Ooh, both.
Yes, yeah. Well, not always both. Not always one or the other either. It depends on the person again. But the purge is, yeah, an interesting part of it. Like, so I think the purge, like, part of it really, like, brings it on. So when you start to purge, it starts to get much more intense, you know what I mean? And you start to hear people popping around you, like, so that it kind of, you drink the medicine, you're sitting in, it's all done in, like, they call them malokas, like, they're circular huts with grass roofs in them, kind of, you're sitting there in the dark with the altar is lit, and it's very ceremonial. They're chanting. They've got specific songs that they sing to, like, communicate with the plants and bring this stuff on, and they kind of control the space very well. But you start to hear people going one by one, you know, and you know it's coming for you soon, you know what I mean? So initially I feel like I wasn't like quite open. So the first ceremony I drank and I didn't really get anything, so I don't think I was quite like in the right place. And then for the second ceremony, I remember asking Don Howard, I said, I'd like to have some more if it's possible. So I remember him filling up like a double the amount that I'd had on the first one. And I choked that down. And in that ceremony, I went way too far. So it was too much. It was like it was just too much of a shock to my body. And I was puking and purging. And I remember there's guys outside, they take care of you like helpers, you know. And you call it banyo, which means toilet, basically. If you need help, and they come in and take you outside. And
they had to carry you because you're so
they
like, messed
basically
up.
had to carry me.
Yeah.
I was walking, and then I would just like, it's hard to explain. Like this, the images and the visions that you have are very fractal, kind of Aztec-y style visuals. It's very hard to explain. It's like reality fragments into just multiple thousands of like kaleidoscopic type images.
Wow, that's cool.
It's crazy. But like I'm trying to walk out and these guys are trying to help me, and I'm just like, this just comes down across your eyes like a tapestry, like whoop, and you just like are dropped into it. And then I would wake up and I'd be like doubled over like on the floor, and they'd be trying to help me up, and then I'd try to walk again and it would hit me again, you know. And it was really intense. And like after that ceremony, I was kind of scared then to go back in. I was like, oh shit, what the fuck have I got myself into here? Like this is hardcore. And I remember I rang home, I rang Aoife, my wife, and I was like, there's nothing kind of happening, you know what I mean? I don't feel like I'm not getting, because I had expectations in my head of what to expect, you know, and it was all very like, I'm going to go here and drink, and then everything's going to be hummingbirds and butterflies, and I'm going to get the answers that I need, you know. But unfortunately, things don't work that way. So I remember ringing Aoife, and I was kind of like frustrated a little bit, and I was saying, I don't feel like anything's happening. I don't know if this is for me. And we were chatting, and then I just like broke down in tears, like, and just from nowhere, like and I cried like. Jesus, I cried for hours that day, like just uncontrollably after being on the phone. And I was like, all right, maybe there is something going on here. Maybe there is something at work here. Because like crying to me, as I said before, like when I was at my own granny's funeral when I was a young kid, I remember standing there looking at her. We were awakening the body up in the bedroom, and everybody was crying uncontrollably, like. And I was standing there, and I remember looking around at people and going, what the hell is wrong with me? Like, you know, why can't I don't feel anything here. And I remember my cousin saying to me, like, how come you didn't cry at the funeral? And I kind of felt real weird about it, you know. I was kind of like, I don't know.
Were you close to her?
Yeah, very close to her, yeah. It's just, somebody put it very well, and they called it emotional constipation. Okay, so it's not like that you don't want to feel the feelings. It's like you've conditioned yourself to shy away from that, you know. So as if you perceive emotion as weakness, when it comes at you, you're gonna put up your defenses, and that's exactly the way it felt. So to me, expressing emotion was weakness. So I just shut it down. I think a lot of men do this, is they just like, the walls go up and they don't want to experience the feeling of the emotion, and they just shut it away. But then it becomes impossible to access that then if you ever need to access it, you know. So it's not there, and that can be very frustrating. It takes a long time to kind of open that back up again. So that was like, I hadn't cried really in a long time. And that day I cried for hours. And I remember thinking, okay, maybe is something going on here, you know. And the ceremonies after that were much more introspective and kind of I got a lot from the other ceremonies that I did after that, you know. But those first two were kind of a real jar and like nothing, and then too much, and then I kind of recalibrated after that a little bit, I think, and kind of got a lot more from it, you know. So
you know what's funny is that I wonder. I think ayahuasca sounds to me like it definitely works. It does, because that's the reason why it's so popular. But I wonder how much of it is a placebo effect. Obviously, there's like, if you were just to drink it on its own and have no ceremony, I wonder how effective it would be. The fact that they make it, you know, there's an altar almost, and there is a whole ritual behind it, and there you feel like there is a process going on here, and it's a little bit like. I feel like alcohol does that for men on a much smaller scale, but more accessible scale, that they can have a beer and speak how they actually want to speak. And often it's in a guise through sport. You know, they'll express their dissatisfaction with their football team or whatever, but they're really talking about their life, you know. And I want to actually share something with you, and it's very topical because I just came back from the park. I was using this new calisthenics rigs they've put in the local park, and there's a guy there. Hopefully he might be listening to this podcast, hopefully not, but it's just because this is quite awkward. Maybe like 4 months ago in the summer, 5 months ago, I was exercising out in the park, and this guy comes over and he's like, "Hey, how are you?" I was like, "What?" I'm fine, yeah. And I had my headphones on. I was working out. I had kind of like some like hip hop music on. I was feeling a bit aggressive. I didn't want to speak to anyone. When people disturb me in the park, I actually don't like to speak to them because I'm in a kind of aggressive mood, and I just like to get my thing done. And anyway, so he says, "How are you? Oh, can I use your rings as well?" They were the Olympic rings, and I reluctantly allowed him to use the rings, and as my adrenaline was kind of wearing off, I realised that he just wanted to speak to me. He just wanted to like speak to another man in the park, and the fact that he was foreign made it a bit more understandable. If he was another English-Irish guy, I think it was a bit odd, but it was like he was a 10-year-old boy speaking to another 10-year-old boy or a 5-year-old boy, like, "Oh, can I play with your toys?" So because he was an adult man, I was thinking he's either wants to mug me or date me. I don't like, you know, he fancies me or something. You know, I was so, the fact that he could just want to speak to me as another man was unusual. So I'm ashamed to say this. I actually lied to him. I said, he said, "Do you live around here?" I says, "No, I don't live here. I live in England." Just 'cause I was so freaked out. I said, "I'm just here for the weekend, and I thought I'd use these, come down to the park." And then he was really, really lovely guy. He says, "Oh, maybe we'll work out again together or something." I said, "Oh, well, I don't live here, so see you later." And normally I'm not like that, but just because that situation. And then today, 5 months later, I'm in the park and I bump into him. I know, and he's there, and he says, "Oh, I thought you lived in England." I said, "Oh, I live here now, and actually I've been living here all the time. You know, I am English," and just I didn't go into details as to why I lied, but yeah, this guy, he's such a lovely guy, and I had time to think about that encounter 5 months ago, and I said it to my girlfriend, and she said, "Was he like Polish?" I think he was actually. She said, "Yeah, they tend to be really friendly, like because." And I think they serve in the military as well. They have compulsory military, and that means they're more open to chatting to other men and I thought, man, shame on me, you know, that I was so closed-minded to his intentions. And so I took his phone number today. I was like, "Yeah, I would text you next time I'm down the park." But
set up a mandate.
Set up a mandate. Yeah. Would you make of that?
I think maybe a lot of that is cultural, you know, and like Irish and English people are much less open to interacting with strangers, for sure. like than other nationalities. Like you look at Italian people and French people. Even look at like outdoor training culture in other countries. Irish people, you like it's getting more popular now, but it's very rare you'd catch someone like out at an outdoor rig like that doing a workout because they feel like other people are looking at them more. I think that's a real cultural thing with Irish and English people, and we're getting out of that. Like we're growing out of that, and that obviously comes probably from Catholic Church or you know British oppression or whatever it may be. I don't know, but there definitely has been that thing there, and probably interacting with strangers is a part of that. And the fact that he was a guy, you know, you're like, why is this guy doing something out of the ordinary, approaching me? It's natural to think, you know, in a defensive manner, kind of. But it's unfortunate that we do that, you know.
It really is, yeah.
Like, I don't think you need to be ashamed of doing what you did. If for any reason that, like I always say, listen to your instincts. So if you're doing something, if you feel weird about a situation, you know, go with your gut on it. Because who knows, maybe he does want to chop you up and put you in his freezer, put your head on his mantelpiece.
Yeah, it did make me think that, like, you know, I need to be a bit more, just give people the benefit of the doubt in that.
Yeah.
But it was because he was a big guy, and if it was a woman, I wouldn't feel a physical threat unless she was like a professional fighter or something.
Oh, you'd be chuffed with yourself if that was a woman. you'd be having the time of your life.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. So, but yeah, it just goes to show you that, like, men, we still have a lot to learn, especially Irish English men. And I think you're right. I think it is a mixture of repression by the Catholic Church and reliance on alcohol. I actually do Northern European men. I think that's why it's so popular. Because when I lived in Korea for a couple of years, and you'd see businessmen walking down the street with their briefcase in one hand, 50-year-old businessmen holding hands. You go to the Middle East or Morocco specifically, straight men holding hands walking down the street, and just no big deal. And it's actually quite cute to see, like, you know, two Korean businessmen holding hands. They've got like they're kind of pink red faces and drinking loads of soju, and they're chuffed to bits. And I think, and even when I was in Paris, man, like, you know, the guys meet, they do 4 kisses on the cheek and stuff. And it's yeah, it is, part of it is definitely a culture thing. But I plan to this year to do a lot more like yoga for men events. I think that's what's your well, maybe not your take on yoga. Well, yeah, I suppose. But what's your experience with yoga? I know it's quite a broad word, yoga.
I love yoga. Like I originally started doing yoga because I wanted to get into meditation, and I couldn't sit still and do nothing. And I found, like, just sitting down and meditating very difficult. So I started doing yoga as a kind of form of moving meditation, because I always remembered when I trained traditional martial arts when I was younger, we did a lot of forms and kata style things with breath control, which is essentially moving meditation, you know. And I remember connecting really well with those moving forms, and they gave me a real, like, there was something in it for me, like that made me feel better, you know. So I think that's why I gravitated towards yoga then, as like breathing, moving meditation. And I started going to classes in Samadhi originally, actually, which is where you were teaching now. So I used to go to lunchtime classes in Samadhi. And then I branched out and I just started trying loads of different styles, and like I'm no yogi by any stretch of the imagination, you know. I just like moving, and I love to experience different things. So yeah, I've tried, like, the last year I went hard at Bikram in Dublin City, Bikram yoga. I'd had no experience with Bikram before that, and I just went at it, and I actually really enjoyed it. And I've tried all styles, I think, probably at some stage. But it's an amazing practice in terms of even just bodily function. like some of the biggest gains I've noticed in flexibility and feeling good about certain joints in my body were through yoga for sure. Rather than stretching and, you know, like inverted commas mobility practice. I think it's a powerful thing just to dedicate a certain amount of time per week to moving for the sake of opening your body up. And, you know.
Yeah, and I think that a lot of men have a misconception about yoga that it's just, I've heard people say this, other men say this flat out, that, oh, yoga is just lying around and stretching your legs, you know, or just you just breathe and think of nothing. But actually, particularly Bikram, Joe Rogan does Bikram yoga, and he once said that yoga is like a martial art against yourself. And I love that, because when I do yoga, sometimes I feel really aggressive, man. Like I feel like I'm trying to stick a handstand, or I'm on one leg trying to do transition, and it's me almost against my body, but yet my body's helping me. And it's such a great physical outlet, that where you experience a spectrum of emotions, not just peace and love. And actually, when you get to that shavasana at the end, that meditation, that blissful part, when you've gone through the turmoil of the more aggressive poses, it's so much more enjoyable. It's so much more an experience. What's your meditation practice now then?
So again, varied. Like I'm greedy with all things, and I like to try all things. So I think like aiming to be a generalist in as many things as possible is a good way to go. You get a varied kind of view of everything. So yeah, I've tried lots of different types of meditation, like mindfulness and, you know, visualization and all of these different styles. And I find that breath work is probably the one that I connect with the most personally, you know. And I tend to go towards like more, not aggressive styles of breath work, but towards things that pull me in a little bit more. When I'm more involved in it, it holds me in for longer, if that makes sense. So yeah, I'll get quite into like deep breath work.
Is that through cold water immersion, or do you do?
I do them separately. Yeah. Like it's actually very rare that I would do cold water and breath work in the same session. You know, I tend to, if I'm doing cold water stuff, I tend to do it while I'm trail running or something like that. Breath work I do in the morning, you know, as part of my routine in the morning when I get up, and it's a nice time to do it. I think is to move your joints a little bit, do some breath work and get some oxygen flowing around the body, get your brain centered, get your mind focused, and then go forward into your day. You know, I think that's a nice time to do it. Yeah. And maybe before bed is good too. But I tend to do it in the morning. I tend to front load my day a lot like that, where I'll just like get a lot of stuff done early and then kind of end up going to bed early. But you know, the latter half of the day won't be as jammed. But the breathwork stuff, I'm going more towards the kind of vacuum breathing. I do a fair bit of Wim Hof style. Just I like the freedom of that stuff, where it's like it's not really dogmatic. There's no strict rule set with it. It's just like get as much oxygen in as you can, you know, and then do a hold at the end. And it's really simple. I think the simpler it is, the more you're going to do it, the more approachable it is for most people. And, you know, just remove all of that like fluff that people tend to put into things to make them seem more complicated than they are.
I think as well, people do that maybe because they're trying to sell meditation packages. And the problem is that it puts people off because they think, oh, well, I can't continue this on my own because there's so many ways to meditate. I mean, I don't meditate as in I don't do guided meditations or anything like that. I do teach meditation in my class, but my meditation would be 5 minutes at the end of yoga practice. Me and my girlfriend sit back to back and we breathe together. That's it. I can feel her breathing, she can feel me breathing, and we do a bit of chanting as well. And that's good for me because, like you, I find it hard to if it's too complicated, it's hard to make a habit. In fact, actually, you know, we still speaking of cold water immersion, like me and my girlfriend still laugh and talk about when we did that excursion with yourself and Naomi, and how I was jumping into the sea, like, and it's great because your brother Danny like recorded a video of it, which is like one of my favorite videos of us jumping into the sea. I gotta say, man, that was like, because yeah, that was like I will never forget that experience, and I really hope you do one of those events again, because
Awesome.
it was amazing. I think you guys, my advice would be do more of them, because they'll do really well.
I know we are definitely going to do more. That was like we were feeling out the ground, you know, with that one, and just
Yeah.
wanted to see how we could run, how we could do it. And like I've been meaning to do something that's mixed anyway, because like I have a focus on men. Like I feel like that's a direction that I want to go, but I also don't want to be just like the man guy, you know. So like there's something in this for everybody. Like it's not just men that can benefit from this. I think we're all in the same boat now in terms of, you know, our lack of nature contact, our physical situation that we're all in, being sedentary so much of the time, our lack of camaraderie and tribe and connecting with people who are on the same level of us. And there's so many aspects to it that are, you know, for everybody, male or female. It's just that, you know, from my own particular experiences, I feel like I can push towards men a bit more, but like I enjoy doing it with a mixed group just as much. And that's why like me and Naomi connected, because I was kind of looking for somebody, a female figure that could be a part of it, you know, because I wouldn't feel, people had said to me, you should do a female one, just girls. And I was like, how would that work with just me, you know, and a group of girls? Like, it would be different, you know. I wouldn't be able to create the experience with the same, like, accuracy or whatever that I could with men, you know. So I wouldn't feel as qualified, really.
Yeah.
So to have some kind of strong female figure there that can, you know, stand for that side of it. And I think the mixed event was great. It went really well, you know.
Because it brought us, me and my girlfriend, closer together. Because I'd reference you or that group, and then when she actually got to meet you guys, and as you said, male, female, whatever gender you want to attach to yourself, it's so hard to find an excuse to go outside these days, especially when it's cold, and just to get people outside is, I think, probably the most beneficial thing. So in terms of, because it's 2019 now, have you got any what's the next thing on you, the next thing on the horizon for you, events-wise?
Yes, I'm going to do another Re-Wilding Man event in March.
Okay.
On the Equinox, and then we're looking at a summer event for a mixed group, and there will be, I'm planning to run maybe an overnight or a 2-day in the summer for men, and really dig deep into, like, get a little bit deeper into it, you know, with some long breathwork sessions, some real physical adversity, if you want to put it that way, and the focus on the group and our individual parts in each group, and how we can all be a part of the group no matter what our physical attributes or our mental attributes, you know, finding your own strengths within the group and being an essential part of the group, which is a huge self-value thing. Is like finding your place, what do you offer to people, and what are your strengths, and actually knowing that is a huge thing. Get some drumming involved, late night drumming session, cook some meat over a fire, and just get primal with it, you know, and get primal with it. Yeah, get deep into that stuff, because look, like, we all have this inside of us. Like, so when you went on that day, on the Re-Wilding Man Day, you know, there's something in that whole process that feels natural to us all. It's like we're exerting ourselves physically. We're in a small group of men. Like, this stuff has been going on for millions of years, where men have got together in groups and set out in the low light of dawn for whatever reason it may be, hunting parties and war parties and all of that stuff. And I think that's something that connects deeply with us, you know, and there's something inside of us that recognizes that. And there can be a catalyst for self-reflection and change in that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
Yeah.
So if people want to contact you, what's the best place to reach you?
Probably through email, jodykennedy.ie @gmail.com, and my website is jodykennedy.ie, and Instagram, jodykennedy.ie as well.
Yeah.
And you can contact me through any of those channels for sure.
And that's Jody, everyone.
Yes, correct.
Cool, man. That's it.
All right, Ledge.
Done.
Good stuff.
And there you go, folks. Or should I say yoga lifers? Do you reckon that'll take off? We'll see. That's Mr. Jody Kennedy. Next week, I have with me the return of Mr. Devon Kelly. Devon was my first ever guest on this podcast in episode 3. So you can scroll back to episode 3 and have a listen to Devon there. I'm in the process of editing that episode because we did it over WhatsApp and he's based in China. So there's a little bit of times where the sound goes and we lose signal. So I'm going to tidy up a little bit, make it sound nice and pretty for your ears. And hopefully that's it. Yeah, if it's uploaded, scroll across to episode 35 with Devon. Message me, get in touch. It's wicked now. People are sending me voicemails. So yeah, so send me like a voicemail through my direct message in Instagram if you've got any questions or feedback, and then I can answer that live on air. Well, not live, but I can answer that on air, and it makes it a bit more interactive. So feedback, questions, reviews, please. Yes, thank you. See you next week. Have a good one.